This is Money Talk 1310 and 100.9. Welcome to the Real Estate PB&J Hour, hosted by Realtors Paul Fuqua and Joyce Carcaise, who are experts in the fundamentals of buying and selling homes and other real estate properties. Now, here's Paul and Joyce.
Well, good afternoon. This is Paul Fuqua, and I'm going to start out this evening by restating why we are named the Real Estate PB&J Hour. PB&J is a staple of American life, and it is a fundamental food group as far as I'm concerned. So we felt that our focus on the show is on the fundamentals of real estate. So Joyce Carcaise and I, both agents at Rose & Womble, felt very strongly that that kind of name would stick with people. Just like peanut butter sticks to the roof of your mouth. Maybe some words of wisdom will stick to the roof of your mouth. Look, folks, I'm a real estate agent. Joyce, jump in here and help me out of this mess that I've put myself in. Anyway, it should be fun. It should be informative. And hopefully we can address some of the issues that you as a buyer or seller or homeowner have. We always start out every show every week with some of the statistics. And last week we talked about the best time for home sellers being April, and specifically, according to the stats, April 10th through 16 is the peak time for new listings. We've seen a little uptick. Joyce will give us that in the number of listings. And we do expect to have several more growth of listings in the coming weeks. Why is this time so critical for real estate? Everything's greening up. Houses look good and yards look good, and people get the yearning to find something new. At least they used to. It's changed a little bit, and that's one of the reasons for this statistics. Joyce, update everybody on the housing activity.
Okay, well, we'll have the full stats available for Hampton Roads next week. We're waiting to actually get the updated stats on that now. But today we're still seeing closer to about 2,700 listings. It's a little bit more. We're saying truly a little bit more, 50 more listings than we had seen over the past few weeks. But 60% of those are under contract pending contingencies. So 40% are actually active, available for purchase.
No matter what Zillow says, because Zillow doesn't recognize that category of an active listing that has contingencies on a contract that is in place.
Right. Detached homes carry the bulk of the home sales, while attached homes, which is your condos and your townhomes, have been even sparser availability-wise, but those are flying off the shelves. And they're flying off the shelves because they're the most affordable option for a lot of buyers out there. That's
really the kind of price range for the first-time home buyer.
That's right.
And that's where we're seeing this pressure. And the pressure is coming from below. It's not coming from above in terms of the pressure on inventory that continues to be at an all-time low, a historical low.
That's right. That's right, because we talked last week, too. I mean, and what we're seeing nationally is we are still at a deficit with 1 million homes. We need 1 million homes to be put out on the market.
Is that new homes? Is that what you're talking about? Just 1 million homes?
1 million homes.
Resale or new?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, the other question, there's an average, or rather we've always talked about the average versus the median sales price. Mm-hmm. What right now in this area is the median sales price?
For new construction?
Yes.
For new construction, it's $455,000.
How can that be considered a starter home?
Remember, I mean, that's the problem. And there's still some inventory available as a result of that because it's higher price points. The lumber, the resources that are available to build the homes are not as easily accessible right now.
And the other thing is the average sales price is what,
$488,000.
Wow. Think about that. Your first home,
that's right.
If you're a new home buyer, you're pretty much forced because of the pricing structure today to look in the resale market where there aren't as many houses as there were 2 years ago. What about the average sales price here?
overall in Hampton Roads, the average sales price is $336,000, which is still up 6% from the same time last year.
Now, we look at year-over-year statistics. We also have any number of sources for the generation of statistics. Everybody that I know, when I'm on the golf course or standing in the line at the grocery store and somebody sees that I'm a real estate agent, they ask me, how's the market going? And then they say, I saw on Zillow such and such. Tell me where you think or what some of the studies say with regard to what Zillow is projecting for the coming year.
Okay, so Virginia Realtors Association, they had a blog actually addressing just that. And what they're saying is that Zillow, of course, says 22% is the price growth they think will peak the first quarter, and 17% by the end of 2022. However, Dr. Sturdivant, I think that's how you pronounce her name, with the Realtors Association, she says that she really doesn't think that is a true number. She's looking at more 9.4% year over year is what we saw in 2021. 2022, she's thinking more 4.1% year over year.
So that's trying to figure out what's going to be coming up, because the first quarter of this year, the statistics show that there has been continued growth in price. There's been a continued increase in price.
Well, just last week we were looking at just month over month for 2022, and I think it was Virginia Beach or Chesapeake. It was 17% up from the previous month. That wasn't even year over year. That was the previous month.
I've been asked whether or not we can project there being an end to this growth in value, and there's always an end. Real estate, just like every other commodity, which what real estate is, goes through cycles of growth and retraction or contraction. And right now we are experiencing growth in prices because of the paucity of inventory, correct?
That's correct.
And as inventory becomes more available, because people want to capitalize on the growth in the value of their homes, and they've found some place to move to. They may be in the wilds of Western Carolina, but at least they'll be able to afford something rather than making a lateral move. But as inventory expands and the value of the dollar deflates in terms of its purchasing power, that's what inflation does. It deflates your value. It inflates the prices and deflates the value of the dollar. We're going to see the necessity of slowing the increases down in our pricing structure. Realize real estate agents don't set prices. Sellers set prices. And sellers set prices predicated on what the market shows their house is worth, predicated on sold houses. Right? So when we go into your kitchen and we lay out here the values of the neighborhood and the houses that have been sold in your neighborhood, we're in essence giving you a roadmap of the values that are given by the buying public to your neighborhood and to houses of similar size and appurtenances. How many bedrooms, how many baths, how big's the yard, those elements. And the market dictates the price you choose. You can bump it as you see fit, and you learn very quickly in a normal market whether or not you've stretched it too far.
That's right.
And what we are seeing is that because of the lack of inventory, buyers begin to panic. And I think you can relate some issues, how much over and things of that nature. Is that? Do we have any stats there?
I don't have all those stats. No, okay. Not for that. I mean, I think going back though, like I said, it's a supply and demand issue, right? And right now, with the lack of supply, we're looking at fewer people being able to afford the properties that they want to buy. We're starting to see more of an uptick and this is the mixed homes sold in 2022. Lower price condos and townhomes we'll see more sold at this point until more availability becomes available for the resale.
I remember when you and I were discussing this pre-show, there were 4 factors that influence and suggest that the demand for home ownership will cool slightly.
Right.
Now, realize slightly in macro terms is it can be hundreds of thousands of houses because so many people are involved in our market. There's 330 million people in this country, and I think sometimes half of them are looking for a new house. But what are those 4 issues?
So it's mortgage rates, number one.
All right.
Okay, once those, once they increase, we think that there will be a cooler market because the demand will drop a little bit more.
Okay.
Prices, again, they've been rising so quickly that affordability is a great challenge. And so a lot of buyers, and like I said, one of the biggest demographics looking for homes are the millennials. And they're staying at home. They're staying within the homes that they currently own. They're renting, which is astronomical at this point, too. We've seen, a 30% increase in rent prices in the area. So that's a big issue. We go back to inflation, and what's that doing? Dollars don't have the value that they had before, so you've got to prioritize.
Listen, I filled up my Suburban the other day, and it was $106.
Oh my gosh!
No, oh my gosh.
Well, my Hyundai, it was $50.
Yeah, I'd rather take a cab. I think either that or would Uber take me to Baltimore?
Well, they're going to carry over those costs to you too.
And then what about the mix?
The mix of homes, and that's what we just talked about before. It's the lower priced condos and townhomes will be sold in 2022 more so. I'm going to finish this little bit of segment because we're going to be going to commercial in just a minute. But the slower growth of pricing does not mean, and I'm going to quote Joyce here, does not mean that the housing market is in trouble or weak. Quite the contrary. The housing market is very strong, remains strong this year with good demand, and there are positive long-term economic and demographic fundamentals at play. If you're paying a higher interest rate, that's going to impact your monthly payment, which may well be that you're going to look at a house that may be $75,000 or $50,000 or $25,000. It depends on the rate, and it depends upon your ability to repay. That will suit you. Pie in the sky dreaming of the $800,000 house at 2.2%. That is now remains pie in the sky. And I think the best thing people can do when they are going into the market is sit down with a very competent loan officer who can give you good advice and guidance. Dino, are we about ready to go? All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll be back with Holly Robinson of Advanced Financial Town Mortgage, and we'll talk rates and other things. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Real Estate PB&J Hour on Money Talk 1310 and 100.9. Rose and Womble Realtors, Paul Fuqua and Joyce Carcaise continue their discussion of the fundamentals of home buying and selling.
We'd like to welcome back Holly Robinson of Advanced Financial Group. If you have any questions during her talk, please call 757-497-1310. Hi, Holly.
Hello, Miss Joyce.
Quick question. Actually, I read this confidence survey today, and it was from the Realtors Association. 75% of realtors rated buyer activity as high or very high in their local market. And again, this is in Virginia, with only 6% rating their local market low or very low. My question to you is, if there's that many buyers out there, how many of them are actually qualifying for loans today?
Well, qualifying for loans today is certainly different than it has been in a few years, as considering interest rates are on the rise. So, and the requirement, what seems to be a requirement still, of having to guarantee your value up to your sales price when you're getting into these contracts and going under contract. So no longer the days of folks being able to qualify for just the mortgage payment. They're also having to qualify with cash on hand to make up the difference on that guarantee, and then, of course, the monthly mortgage payment.
Holly, what percentage of the people that come into your office and look for loans are anticipating paying more than list and having to guarantee over appraisal?
Over half.
And how do you advise them?
I mean, how bad do they want the house? It's all about the negotiation. They need to get into a home. This is what they have to do in order to go under contract. I'm not necessarily advising one way or the other. It's how they want to spend their money.
Are you seeing more and more potential buyers coming in with bundles of cash?
Yes.
Are you able to inform us as to the source of that cash
Sure.
generally?
I've done quite a few deals here recently where parents have passed away and people are receiving, good chunks of inheritance money. The other thing is people are dipping into those 401ks. And then lastly, people are home buyers already selling their homes, netting those proceeds, and then turning around and putting those back into their new purchase.
Okay. Joyce, I know you have a good question for.
No, I do. So we're going to be talking with our special guest today, and we're going to be talking about investment properties. So I have a lot of questions as we were prepping for that. What are the differences and benefits of using a renovation loan versus a HELOC or a fixed equity loan to remodel a home?
Well, the benefits for taking advantage of the renovation loans, which you can do an FHA 203K loan, or with our company as well, you can do a conventional renovation loan. I will tell you that not all companies offer those products. They are very specific. But the benefits of doing a renovation loan is we're going to base your loan amount on the future value and condition of the property. And that's huge.
Let me ask you a question. I sold one house, and it was very early in the application of a VA renovation loan. Does your company offer those?
Yes, we are offering them right now at this time. It's just not something that is super prevalent. The VA renovation is only allowing, I want to say it's $6,000 in renovations.
This was a sizable one.
How long ago was it?
I want to say it was about 2.5 years ago, and it was the first VA reno loan in the area. So the appraiser and the processor and it was with Navy Fed. They didn't know what to do, and somehow it got done, and the people took over the house. It was a $400,000 buy, and they borrowed on the basis of a finished value of $680,000.
Well, I'm glad that individual did get to closing. I'm sorry that the Navy Federal didn't know what they were doing.
Well, it was the first time.
I would like to plug the process on our end, though. However, what would happen is you're going to do application with myself. And then I partner with our renovation specialist, Chris Bushing, with Town Bank Mortgage. And it's the best of both worlds. So I'm going to be your loan officer. I'm going to get you through the normal process of credit and underwriting and all of those things. And then he is there on point to handle all of those renovations details, including HUD consultants, understanding your draw schedule, understanding the amount of money that's needed for closing, contingency reserves, and those type of things. So doing business with us on a 203K loan or any type of renovation loan is definitely the way to go.
So I have a question. You're saying that the loans are predicated on the future value of your home. So Paul, based on the fact that we're looking at values today, ranging from, like I said, a Zillow 22% increase down to 4%, how would you assess that? I mean, how do you base that future value today?
So a HUD consultant is called in, and you put your wish list together, and you give it to your HUD consultant, and then your HUD consultant goes through and designates an idea of how much whatever item that you want completed, how much it's going to cost. Then you get with your contractor that you select, and then the contractor has to agree with whatever the HUD consultant has provided for prices. We move through the loan process. We go to closing. The loan funds. The contractor starts the work. Now, when the contractor does start the work, there's not necessarily an initial draw. So that contractor has to take on that debt in the beginning. And then as they move forward through certain milestones, 25% completion, whatever the case is, then they can ask for draws.
Now, there is a simple reno loan under that program, is there not? It's limited to $35,000 and nothing structural. Nothing structural in any of these loans, correct?
No.
It's all cosmetic?
Nope. So on the regular 203K, not the limited repair. The limited repair is, you're correct, it's $35,000.
And you can't do it yourself, but you needn't go through the entire bidding process that HUD requires on the reno loan in excess of $35,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
But for the other loan, it is a minimum of $5,000. Your regular FHA 203K loan, it's a minimum of $5,000, and you can do structural repairs on that one.
Okay. All right. Is this a process that is terribly demanding of the buyer, or have you found in your experience that it actually is simpler than it sounds?
I mean, that's kind of difficult to answer because it really, which buyer is going to determine how something is more difficult than less difficult. I feel like they actually enjoy the process and being a part of it because they're able to select their contractor, they're able to select the paint and what they want to do as far as renovations are concerned, and they stay in the loop on those items.
Let me ask you a question. 2 or 3K loan, or even a private reno loan, which I know
Conventional.
I'm sorry, private. Is there a change in the rate?
Yes.
In the interest rate? What's an average increase? Is it by a full point?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any kind of repayment penalty? Can you accelerate repayment?
No. Yeah, you absolutely can. You can prepay it or pay it off early.
What about HELOCs? What's the advantage of a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, over a refi or a reno loan?
So a HELOC is going to be based on the value of the property as it stands in its condition at that time. Versus if you were to do the FHA 203K or the regular renovation conventional loan, then that dollar amount is going to be based on what is going to be perceived the value later on after everything's done. With your HELOC, the benefit is it is a line of credit, and you can use the money, and then as you pay it back, you still have that available line of credit, similar to a credit card.
But it's actually a recorded lien on your property.
Absolutely.
In the total amount.
Yes.
Correct? So let's say I have a house that's worth $500,000 in the market, I owe $200,000. I put a $100,000 HELOC in place. So if anybody looks up the record of that house, I owe $300,000.
Yes.
Okay. Just be aware of that, folks. That shows up on your credit rating when you have a HELOC. And the only way to get rid of it is to abandon it, basically.
Well, refinance out of it.
Right.
You can do a cash out on your first mortgage and then absorb again that.
But if you haven't borrowed the HELOC, you haven't used it, how do you end it? I have a very good friend and client who
you close the account.
Okay, so but that
Yes.
doesn't cause any kind of difficulty in credit ratings.
No.
Okay. Tell us how to reach you.
My phone number is 757-435-0354, 757-435-0354, or holly.robinson@afglending.com. And my NMLS ID number is 1112-728.
Do you have any final questions for this lovely lady, Joyce?
I think that's it.
Thank
Good
you.
information. Yeah, if anybody has any information that they'd like to follow up on, just go ahead and contact her directly.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take a break here, and then we're going to have a very special guest on, Darren Perry, a Chesapeake native and wonderful entrepreneur and a so-so golfer. See you in a couple minutes.
Welcome back to the Real Estate PB&J Hour on Money Talk 1310 and 100.9. Rosen-Womble Realtors, Paul Fuqua and Joyce Carcaise continue their discussion of the fundamentals of home buying and selling.
Welcome back. We have a very special guest with us today. Chesapeake native and former NFL star on the field and highly regarded NFL coach, Darren Perry. We're here to discuss real estate, but it's also a thrill to hear from someone who has achieved at the highest level of competition, whether it be football, chess, or figure skating.
Darren, I got to ask you, were you ever a figure skater?
Not at all.
All right.
And how many rings do you have?
3. 3, Joyce.
The man has 3 Super Bowl rings.
Only
And 2
3.
of them are from who?
2 are from Pittsburgh, and the other one is Green Bay.
Indeed, Pittsburgh. Okay. You started your career here at Deep Creek High School in Chesapeake. You were named first team football writers All-American in 1991 and graduated from Penn State, also my alma mater. Second leading all-time interceptor. He played professionally with the San Diego Chargers, Baltimore Ravens, New Orleans Saints, and Pittsburgh Steelers, where he helped this team score another Super Bowl win in 2006. He later became assistant coach with the Steelers, Oakland Raiders, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Green Bay Packers. Darren has 3 Super Bowl rings. That's only, well, I guess that's equal to Tom Brady. Is that right?
Not close.
All right, I'm going to steal the mic for a second. Now, look, you've had a tremendous high school, college, and NFL career, but more importantly, we want you to talk a little bit about your spectacular family.
Paul, thanks for you and Joyce having me on. I love the name, by the way, PB&J. I grew up on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so builds a little bit of character. So kudos for the name. I grew up in Chesapeake, Paul, and one of the 3 things that I believe in, and this goes back to Jim Valvano, where you're from, where you are, and where you're going. And so Chesapeake's always been a special place for me. I've competed in athletics pretty much throughout my whole entire life, and now I'm competing in the real estate field, and I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to getting things going. I'm trying to walk before I start running, but we're getting our feet wet and we're progressing.
Darren, I've tried to think of how many houses you've been involved with over the years that I've ended up selling for you, and in every one of them, you were instrumental in their construction. I think you functioned as a GC, general contractor, overseeing the builders who were doing the work for you. Tell me why you decided to do that rather than just hiring somebody and having a spec house built, or rather a custom home built.
Well, first of all, Paul, I'm a hands-on guy, not only as a player, but as a coach. And 26 years in the National Football League taught me a lot about dealing with people, managing people, and getting the most out of them. And I really look at my contracting career pretty much similar to me coaching. And part of that is getting the right players, having the right attitude, and not necessarily a lot of talent, but you need some, but more importantly, you need hard work. And so I try to manage my crews just like I would in my meeting room coaching. And at the end of the day, when we get that house finished, it's just like winning a Super Bowl for me. And I like to be a part of that and see it go from the ground up.
You know, you haven't mentioned Erica and your daughters. I want you to brag on them.
Well, I could take up the rest of the show talking about them. But, Paul, I've been blessed. I got 4 lovely daughters. And one of the most important decisions that you make in life is who your mate's going to be. And my mate, Erica, she's been with me for a long time. She was with me in college at Penn State, so she knew me when I had nothing. And when we first bought our first starter home back in the Greenbrier section in the Huntington Lakes, we paid $162,000 for it, Paul, and that was about 3,000 square feet. And obviously, you can't get a house of that size for that price this day and age. But our mindset at the time was we wanted to get something that we could afford, regardless of whatever happened with me on the football field or off the football field, that we'd be able to stay in this house if I played 1, 2, 3, or 10 years in the National Football League. So that was our thought process.
Now, describe your daughter's successes. Come on, man.
My oldest, she graduated from Penn State. She's in banking. My second oldest is Dominique. My first is Danielle. Dominique is my second oldest. She's 25. She's in nursing. My third oldest, she's in broadcast journalism, and she's in New York. That's Deidreana. And my last and final is my youngest, Devin. She's 18, and she's a freshman at Florida State going into her second semester. Really good tennis player. One of the reasons why we moved down to Florida for a little bit, just to get her in a position where she could compete and have a chance to go to the next level. So I've been blessed, and Erica's a big part of that. I like to say I had a hand in that, but she was tremendous with the girls.
Well, I see that all 4 girls have a name that starts with D. Now, is that because you like going DP? Is that because that's been your nickname forever? Or why isn't it E for Erica?
Well, that was Erica's decision on that. And so we got DP1, DP2, DP3, DP4, and DP5. And I get them all confused. So it's easy for me now because when I call them by the wrong name, they look at me like I'm crazy. And they tell me that, Dad, I'm Dominique, I'm not Devin. I'd say, well, wait till you get my age. You'll be doing the same thing.
Wait till you get my age and you can't remember their names. That's the next thing. It's coming up, big boy. I'm telling you. Are you maybe looking like you're in great physical shape, but the mind starts to go long before the body?
There's no question.
All right. Now, look, you were a football player, and you were known in the community as a member of a large family. Your father was a policeman, if I'm not mistaken, or a deputy sheriff?
No, my dad was a longtime police officer in the city of Chesapeake. He was the first black police officer in the city of Chesapeake in 1963 when they left Norfolk and became their own municipality. So I'm very proud of that. My dad was a pioneer, and God rest his soul, and he did a lot. And if I could have the impact on this area that my dad had, half of that, I'd be doing something really special.
Now, during your NFL career, I know you built a house for your parents in Mariners Point because I sold it. And I know you had renovated their house on Cedar Road because I sold it. I'm trying to get you to do some more stuff. There's a theme here. But what really drove you into real estate? Why did you decide that you were going to do this because you're project oriented, or you wanted to provide for the betterment of the community?
That was a big part of it, Paul, is being able to impact the community. I always looked at myself as more than just a football player, football coach. Coaching just kind of got in the way of me becoming a property development contractor, if you will. And I wouldn't change a thing. But I love the aspect of being able to get out in the community and have an impact. And my goal, long-term goal, is to create affordable housing, because right now you guys mentioned the numbers and talking about the national average, the average in Hampton Roads. I just don't know how these young kids are going to be able, the millennials, if you will, are going to be able to afford these new homes. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and that's my goal. And we're trying to create affordable single-family homes.
I must confess, I ask Darren every other week, well, are we ready to start that one? Yeah, we're working. All right, when you first started, where did the money come from? Were you taking the money out of your NFL salary? You didn't end up like Dre Bly.
No, and that's the one thing, Paul. I try to be really, really careful in my decision making, because to me, a quick show of wealth isn't all that impressive, but how you maintain it and how you keep it is more important than anything. And so I've always tried to be prudent in my decisions. I look for a good return on my investment, and I know I'm somewhat new to this profession, and so I really want to be hands-on and really have a great understanding and not just have knee-jerk reactions or quick reactions to jump in deals that look good on paper. But I want to make sure I do my due diligence and do my homework before I invest a lot. And so low risk, high return is kind of my mentality.
You're not alone there, That's the mantra for everybody: low risk, high return. Gee, I wish that's why the stock markets can sometimes be great.
Well, some people talk about it, Paul, but they don't actually do it. So
pursuing the deal. I mean, that's some of the thrill, is pursuing the deal. Now, we had Cliff Hayes, Virginia State delegate, also Chesapeake, great baseball player, Norfolk State. He was on the last week. Was last week, Joyce?
No, probably
2 weeks ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago.
And we got into tangentially the issue of redlining. which was a governmental program started in 1934 that said to the lenders, we will not guarantee your loans. We don't want you lending money in these neighborhoods. And they were actually redlined on maps. And it affected a significant portion of the black community. And it affected them because it did not allow families to grow wealth through home ownership. Because if you can't get the loans, the mortgages, you normally can't buy the house, especially when you're a working family. You grew up in Chesapeake. You saw it change. Your father saw it change. Did you ever experience anything of that in your family's lore or discussions at the dinner table that shows the impact that had on your community?
Well, fortunately for me, Paul, I kind of grew up in a bubble. My time as a professional athlete, growing up, and the time I spent in the National Football League, I kind of didn't see that aspect of it. Financially, I was in a different position. But now, doing what I'm doing now and getting out in the community, being hands-on, and seeing how this redlining and just how underserved a segment of our population is. It's unfortunate. I'm starting to see it now, and it's been documented. I mean, I won't name the institution, but when you got 47% of loans being denied, to one race and 78% being approved, I mean, you know it's there. And it's one of those things that's unfortunate. And the one thing that we have to do as a community, African Americans, we have to get educated. We have to become involved in politics and get the right people in office to where we can get these decisions made and we can eliminate this thing and go in the right direction, because right now we're falling short.
Well, I'm going to ask you, during your career as a high school player, as the son of the first black policeman in the city of Chesapeake, did you experience direct, atrocious behavior because of your blackness?
I did not personally, Paul. And again, like I said before, I grew up in somewhat of a bubble. And Bruce Smith, Hall of Famer, we talk about it all the time. And Bruce is doing great things in the community right now, particularly Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And we both care about the area. I mean, again, I said it before, one of the three most important things in life that I try to live by is where you're from, where you are, and where you're going. And never forgot where I came from and where I'm at and where I want to go. And I want to take this real estate thing to the next level. I want to create opportunities where people can get a home, afford it, and have a lifestyle where they're enjoying themselves and they're not having to worry about, the next paycheck or just the next obstacle that they're going to have to overcome, and being able to get their kids in a good school, whether that's, high school, college, and give them an opportunity to succeed.
Now, I'm going to tell our listening audience that you're an aspiring golfer, and I know you want to be a scratch golfer. Now, and it seems to me that having played with you and enjoyed your company on the golf course, I think amassing a great amount of money in the real estate business is a far more attainable goal than being a scratch golfer. Now, am I wrong? You know me. I'm not a scratch golfer, and I'll admit it.
Now, Paul, this wasn't part of the deal here. You weren't supposed to expose my golf game on the air, so I hope you listeners out there understand what I'm dealing with right now. But if you guys are familiar with Truett Cathy, and he's the founder of Chick-fil-A, and one of the things that he said that always resonated with me, he said, you can do anything in life provided you're willing to put in the time and you have the want to. I want to be a scratch golfer. I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer. There's a lot of things I want to be, but I have to be committed and willing to put that time in to do that. In golf, unfortunately, I can't put that time in to be as good as I really want to. But real estate and what I'm doing now, I'm excited about it. It's a great opportunity, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing right now.
Let me ask you, when somebody brings you a property or somebody brings you an opportunity to invest in real estate, what do you look for first and foremost before you go to the next step of really crunching numbers?
First thing I look for my ROI. I mean, and I look for my my return on investment, and that number is usually around 20%. If more, if it's higher than that, great. And Paul, you sold a lot of my properties. I mean, you talked about the 2 or 3 that you mentioned earlier, but I think every property that I've built and sold, you've been involved. And I do thank you for that, because you've given me great advice. I don't know of anybody that knows this area better than you. And I haven't had any issues in terms of moving properties. And usually when I come to a decision, you're one of the first people I call and ask you what your thoughts are on it. But I've been owner financing most of my projects right now. Once we grow and get to a level where we're needing a substantial amount of funds, then we'll go to that next level. But right now we have been primarily owner financing most of our projects.
When you say owner financing, you're basically financing the construction. You're not taking back loans on the properties that you're building, of course.
Absolutely not. Not at this point.
Believe me, that's one area that you may not want to consider. That's where you can get into deep trouble very quickly. Yes. Ask me how I know.
Well, think about it, Paul. I mean, I've worked hard to earn my financial status, and I want to keep that. And so that's always something that I think about, because it's not just me. There's a lot of people that are being affected by my decision making, and so I try to make sure that I give a lot of thought. And thinking is hard. Thinking is, and if you don't believe me, just try it, because it's easy not to think. I mean, and so.
Darren, that's my lifestyle. Do you think I'd be doing this radio show if I could think?
I'm telling you, I go back and I tell my players, you gotta spend some time in thought, and when you do that, it usually turns out to be pretty good for you. And really, it's not that hard. I mean, I go back to Truett Cathy. I mean, and how successful he is. He talks about how simple a concept it was with Chick-fil-A in terms of just taking the bone out of a chicken breast and putting it in between 2 buns, but making that product one of the best that it can possibly be, and creating a customer service and an experience that people want to come back to. And that's what I think about when I build my projects. I want it to be something that, when this thing is done, I'd want to go live in here, and I'd want to go through that experience again.
I wish he'd left off the pickles, though. I have to remove the pickles. Joyce, do you have any questions? You are a Penn State grad.
Penn State, Pittsburgh Steelers
and Pittsburgh Steelers.
Grew up.
Now you got an all-time hero here. You got any good questions to ask him before I dismiss him?
Well, actually, I had business. I really, really admire you for what you've done, and the fact that despite all your successes, you brought it all back to your community. That's wonderful. My question to you is, you're building up this real estate, as you have this vision. What is your ultimate vision? I mean, are you looking at, do you do onesie, twosie homes, or are you looking at actual communities that you can build?
Well, Joyce, it goes back to what I said earlier about walking before I start running. Mm-hmm. I try to learn from a lot of people's mistakes, and I've seen athletes lose a lot of money as soon as they retire because they want to jump in and become this big real estate developer. And it takes time, and I'm willing to be patient enough, in that regard, and but at the same time continue to grow. And ultimately, I like to have a community of affordable homes where people not only can stay in that home for the first 2 or 3 years. It's just like Eric and I, when we bought our first home in Huntington Lakes back in 1993. I mean, that house right now was still, that's a place we could still live in right now. We moved up, because I was fortunate enough to sign a nice contract, and we bought a bigger home. But that house right now would be very, very practical for my daughters growing up. And that's what I like to have, a community of homes like that are affordable. Because right now, again, we talked about those numbers, $4,500, $1,000. I mean, $4,500, $400-something and $330 just in Hampton Roads alone. I mean, those numbers are really, really high.
Yeah,
and,
out of reach for a lot of.
And and you talk about affordable homes, even with the apartments and so forth. I mean, just. You want to be able to build wealth, and the one thing that you want to do, and land has always been something that has been a pretty good return on your investment. And so I firmly believe that. So affordable homes, eventually, a community of affordable homes is where I like to go.
That's great. I have one more question. Do we have time? So in my past life, I actually, the National Football Players Association was one of my clients. Mm-hmm. And what we were doing was education, going in, talking about identity theft, talking about credit management. lots of young players coming in making multi-million-dollar deals. Did you get the benefit of that type of training? I mean, look, anybody that's going out and making that kind of money up front, you obviously had the fortitude to know what to do with it and how to manage it to be where you are today. Is that something, do you see that an issue in the leagues today?
We do have programs in place, Joyce, where we're educating our players. I know in our meetings, there are times where we deviate from football and we talk about real life experiences and so forth, and maintaining your wealth, making good decisions on and off the field financially, was a big part of that and keeping that. So they do have programs in place, and I think the guys, have so many more resources than they once did. I know I didn't have it when I first came into the league, but we do have it now, and it's something that the league has taken a really good approach in terms of helping these guys on and off the field. So I'm pleased with the growth in that area.
That's great. Thank you.
As the show winds down, I want to tell you that as a real estate agent, I've been very proud to sell product that's been constructed by Mr. Perry. I first was in somewhat awe of him as a football player because he could do what I couldn't. And I'm even more impressed by the fact that he was willing to listen to me and take advantage of the experience I had in real estate. Darren, I thank you for being here. We're coming to the end of the show.
Can I say something here? Just full disclosure, right? Okay. You talked about my golf game, so I have to at least let the public out there know. I'll listen to you in the real estate market, but on the golf course, I listen to nothing of what you say, because you and I know who's the better golfer, and you've been playing a heck of a lot longer than I have. So let's just get that straight, and we'll move on.
Now I'll go back. When I was your age, I carried a 2, and I could play to it at Congressional Country Club. So I was. But unfortunately, too many of us were I wases. You aren't a I was. I'm not a I was.
Well, Paul, one of my mentors used to tell me all the time, it's better to be a used to be than a never was. And so you keep reminding people what you used to be with that too.
I play in a Wednesday game at Broad Bay, and it's like, oh, this is terrible. I shouldn't do that. But folks, thank you for listening. Hope you'll be here next week on Money Talk 1310 AM, 100.9 FM. And I'm going to let Joyce close out the show and tell us about who's going to be here next week.
Yeah, next week you're not going to want to miss it. We'll have Kat Strathman from Rock Solid. She's going to talk a little bit about kitchen renovations, bath renovations, what countertops you need, what kitchen renovations, again, that you need. So please tune in 5 to 6 p.m. next Thursday here on Money Talk 1310 AM, 100.9 FM. Have a great weekend.